East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Welcome to East Idaho Newsmakers. Today we are obviously not in our studio. We are at Pizza Pie Cafe and we are talking with the founder, the owner, the man behind all of it, Matt Smith. Thanks for letting us come in today.
Yeah, I appreciate you interviewing me. Appreciate you coming over.
So let's go back to the beginning. Pizza Pie Cafe started in Rexburg and you changed names, right?
Right, from Craigo's. You know, really the beginning of Pizza Pie Cafe or Craigo's was me growing up making pizza. You know, it started probably 82 is when my parents moved to Utah and we opened up our first pizza restaurant. So I think really figuring out that that's what I had a passion for is when we started. I mean, I did a lot of other things through the years, but I worked in probably 6 different pizza restaurants and other restaurants also. I think we totaled it at 14 different restaurants. I bounced around, you know, you kind of
As a teenager?
Well, teenager, and then even after I got married, I worked in several. I'm sure my wife was nervous all the time. But finding that that's really what I had a passion for kind of started back then. So when we had the opportunity in 2003 to move up here and find an empty restaurant that was available that we could do our pizza restaurant in, that's when we kind of made our move. We saw that we were capable of doing it. You know, we built up the courage and the abilities from working all these other ones.
So you move up to Idaho. Had you ever lived here before? Did you have any ties?
No. Well, my wife's from Pocatello.
Okay.
So we wanted to live close to her family, but not in Pocatello, not close, that close.
Not too close. So you go to Rexburg and Craigo's, was it for sale?
Yeah, so it was an empty building. So it wasn't really for sale, it was just for rent, you know, fully furnished for the most part. So it was a minimal investment.
It was a kind of a dumpy building.
It was very dumpy.
I remember as a college student going in and there were buckets on the floor sometimes.
Yeah, when the floor leaked. Yes, I remember that too.
and you took it over, and how did it do? You kept the name for a while.
Yeah, so we had the name for quite a few years. I think we were in four years into having Craigo's and opening our 3rd location in Pocatello. It was when we went to Utah that the name had already been registered, so we switched it. We kind of came up with a new name. We had a little contest and gave out some prizes, and that's the name we went with, was Pizza Pie Cafe. So then over the next couple of years, we changed the name up here to match, so our advertising, everything was congruent.
And how many restaurants do you have now?
So we have 18 now. We have a couple in Arizona, and then I guess there's 5 here in Idaho, and the rest are in Utah.
So you opened up this smaller restaurant in Rexburg, and was it mainly targeted towards the college crowd?
Well, it was at first because it was right next to the college. I mean, that was it. And, you know, it had some dumpy couches, these old, really big, thick wood booths that you could stand on, dance on, whatever you wanted to do. You couldn't destroy them.
Right on.
And writing all over the walls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that. In fact, it took me about 5 coats of Kills to cover that up before we could paint it all.
So you obviously wanted to get away from that feel.
Well, so we were there a year and a half, and, you know, a small parking lot next to the college. And, you know, honestly, if you're in town and you're not part of the college, you don't particularly drive up there a lot. So it was kind of out of the way. We felt like we could do a little bit better. But really, what drove that, and it was really difficult to make the move. You know, we finally had someone tell us, you know, you're jumping over dollars for dimes. You need to move to a better location. And we kind of got pushed out of that location by the current owner of it. And so at the time, something became available, another restaurant in town. So we were able to make that move. But it was difficult. We were very nervous, but you know what? We doubled sales within a few weeks.
Wow.
So, yeah. So a lot better move for us. And we changed our concept to more full service. We had servers, we had Italian dishes, which we've gone back away from now. But that was kind of our dream, was to have a full service restaurant. But then we found that maybe that wasn't our dream after all, after doing it for a little bit.
So you open up the bigger store in Rexburg. When do you decide, hey, we should go down to Ammon and Pocatello?
So when we were moving into the new location in Rexburg, we were pretty nervous because that was our livelihood. We couldn't find a location. It just came up at the last minute. So during that time, I'd had a friend that had been coming in to eat a lot. And we actually kind of told him, you know, you've been talking about being an investor for a long time. It's time to put up, you know, and he did. And so we signed a lease over in Ammon at the same time. So we actually slowed down building this location in Ammon to try and finish Rexburg, because all of a sudden we had an opportunity to move there. So we opened there in, I think it was, I want to say April of 06. 05, 06, one of those, 06. And then we turned around 3 months later and opened this one. So I was here working all the time, full time, and Jane was in Rexburg along with some other managers we had, and we were training here and trying to get this one going at the same time.
A hectic time.
Yeah, it was. It was, and we learned a lot about full service. We both come from full service background in restaurants, but we learned that that's not really what we wanted to do. It's difficult, and hiring good servers and giving the experience we wanted at the price points we had, we just didn't feel like we could do it.
So then you decide to open in Pocatello.
Yeah, which you were there.
I was there. I was there.
Yeah.
And then you decide to franchise, right? Is that kind of what
Yeah,
happened?
so, well, actually, when we got Pocatello opened, we found out through running these two here that we didn't want to continue with full service. So when we opened Pocatello, we changed it. We dropped the Italian meals, all of that, and we went to just the buffet, pizza, pasta, and salad. We tried to simplify, make it simple for employees and a manager to run. So when we did that, we opened it, and then we went back and changed our concept here. So now it's gone through one big concept change, and then when we opened our store in Provo, that was our next location. We went with the same, you know, we did the the fast casual pizza, pasta, salad, but then we had to go back and change all the names here. So it's kind of gone through evolving. Meanwhile, remodeling the restaurant several times too, just to make that happen. So, we franchised after Pocatello, or after Provo. We had gotten to that point, we brought on a couple other partners, things weren't working out very well. We'd signed some more leases. So then we brought on some money partners, combined it all into Pizza Pie Cafe management, and started to franchise. And opened our first one in Bountiful in 2011.
As a franchise?
First franchise, yeah. So we'd had 6 corporate-owned ones, and then we opened our first franchise then.
And you're up to 18?
Yeah, we're up to 18 currently, yep.
Looking to go more, bigger?
You know, yes, always looking to grow, but finding good franchisees that have a passion for what we're doing is super important. You know, and also, right now the saturation point in restaurants is very high. There's been a lot of money pumped into the fast casual segment, especially pizza and burgers both. And we're starting to see declines in, not us particularly, but declines in the market in customer traffic. It's down about 2.5% right now, and it's been down every quarter for 11 quarters. So,
are people just eating at home, or are they going elsewhere?
Yeah, when you look right now at what price points the restaurants are getting to, when minimum wage starts to climb, you're seeing that now with your food. When you go out for lunch and it's $10, $12, you start to kind of want to bring a bag lunch, you know. And you know, grocery stores have dropped their pricing a little bit, and restaurants have upped theirs. And so I think people are starting to be concerned about the value that they're getting. I mean, even McDonald's and those kind of places are a lot higher than they used to be. So, and we're trying to maintain that price point. We've done pretty well, but it is a struggle. So as far as growing, yes, where there's a need, we would like to grow, for sure. But we're not really particularly interested in growing in markets that are so saturated right now. I'll give you an example. When we opened our Highlands store, in that corridor, Highlands up by American Fork, when we opened that, there were 15 restaurants between the freeway all the way up to American Fork Canyon. There's 56 now, and it's still growing.
56?
There's 56.
In how many years was that?
Well, we've been open there since 2010, so 7 years.
So 7 years.
Yeah, and now, the population's grown. There's been a lot of business, but still we're starting to see those restaurants shut back down. Some of them haven't even been opened a year. So you see that saturation, you say, well, let's look at some other areas,
You talk about saturation. I'm wondering about Provo, because Provo is known for a bunch of pizza restaurants.
Yeah.
What was the decision to go there? Was that just because of students, or?
It really was. We found a location that we could get into reasonably that had been a restaurant. But, students play a big role in our company because, and maybe people don't think about this, but the first thing I think about is I've got to be able to hire people. I got to be able to hire people that can work during the day. And that's not always easy. So the students, when I look at going into a place, a lot of times people say, you should go here, you should go to this place and open. And I think, yeah, but who am I going to hire? I got to have somebody working, and unemployment started to drop, so it gets more difficult. You have to pay more and so forth. So the students are huge, but also, like in Rexburg, where it's a high student population, we have the great people from the town that come in to eat. But then, all those gaps are filled in. Afternoons when students are done at school, or late nights when they're out on dates and stuff. So it really adds to our sales, for sure. But we're also in plenty of places that we don't have colleges too.
Yeah.
So we're kind of a mix of that.
So I remember as a college student, it must have been 03 or 04, you had just opened.
Yeah.
And I ordered a pizza on my way home from class. It was winter, it was freezing cold. I came in and my card was declined. You were the only one working there. And you said,
probably I was the only one.
You were the only one in there. I was the only customer. You said, take your pizza and pay me back when you can.
And you brought some money with you.
I came back the next day with a check. You probably thought it was going to bounce. It didn't bounce. But I've always remembered that, how impressed I was that here you're a new business owner. You're probably trying to make ends meet. And here's a college kid that may have just stiffed you $5 or $6. Yeah. What's the decision behind that?
Okay, so that's a great question. And it's something that I think a lot of people don't understand is you can put a lot of money into marketing. And you can have a big budget and keep pumping out coupons, pumping out whatever you want. And we do plenty of coupons and that kind of stuff. But when you really think, I read an article years ago, and I just heard another podcast about it just this last few days. But when you look at marketing to somebody, you've got to get somebody in your restaurant or any place several times before it really becomes a place they're going to go to a lot. And so if you can market to someone 3 times, so we came up with this system, and if you came in for the first time, we gave you like a 50% off card. Now we don't do this anymore because we've grown quite a bit, but we gave you like a come in again and get 50% off, or I think we gave away something free or something, and then the next time you came in, we had another one for you. So we tried to get you into that pattern, and that's what's so important. So if I can give away, even if you hadn't come back and paid, you would have remembered that because you still do.
Yeah.
And so now we've created some bond between the restaurant and the customers, our guests that come in. And that's what's so important because, you've got so many choices, and sometimes it's just convenience. You're driving with your wife, you're traveling, you're like, hey, where should we go? I don't know, there's this, this, and this. You get on Yelp, you get whatever, and you find something, and you jump in and you grab something to eat. But if it's not, and if you're out and you're doing stuff, what comes top of mind? Hopefully we do sometimes, not all the time. We don't expect people to eat in here every week or every day, but getting into that rotation and keeping that front and center for a customer is really difficult. There's so much noise now. So that's what we try to do. So if we can make that connection and develop a pattern, that's what's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it brought me back.
What's that?
It brought me back, and here I am 10 years later
exactly.
coming back. So we're going to take a quick break here, a word from our sponsor. When we come back, I want to talk about advice you may have for other people that want to start a restaurant, or people who have started and are maybe struggling in any small business, and what you've learned over the past 10, 15 years doing this, and your favorite pizza choices. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thanks for watching today. We are at the Ammon Pizza Pie Cafe location talking with the founder of Pizza Pie Cafe. You've probably had their pizza or at least are familiar with them. Matt, we were talking about how you've been around for 13 years, 14 years now as far as Pizza Pie Cafe.
Yep. Yes.
What's been the biggest lesson you think you've learned? Or a few, you can share a few.
A few. Well, I guess the first one is treating employees really well. And you know, I'm sure there's employees that we've had that don't feel that way. There's always going to be. But you know, taking care of employees is so important. And you hear a lot of different concepts talk about that. But you know, we really try and treat everyone as good as we can. And hopefully then that turns around and brings back customers because employees are treating them so well. You know, there's a saying in the restaurant business, you never tick off the waitress right before she brings your food out. You know what I mean? And I don't need to go into that, but you get the point. And how is that any different from berating an employee and excuse me, and then having them go out and try to take care of a customer? You know, so I think for me, I worked in so many different restaurants, and I worked in some horrible restaurants. And I won't get into names, but I've worked in some ones that I just would never even go in and eat anymore. And I've worked in some restaurants that I have very fond memories. In fact, when I've been back in them, I've been a little bit depressed because, and they were pizza restaurants, my competition, but when I've been back in, I've been like, hey, we had it running really well when I was here, you know. I wasn't necessarily the general manager or anything, but we had such a great place to work, and now I come back and I see how far it's gone downhill. It's a little bit depressing because I took ownership. And if we can get our kids that are working here to do that, that's what's so important.
What's been the biggest mistake you think you've made?
It always comes back to judgments on people. I mean, we've made some mistakes for sure in that area. And, you know, you're going to always do a few, but everything comes back to the human element. I mean, we've got plenty of systems to run stuff, but we can't train you. We inherit all the problems you've had as an employee or a general manager or whatever your whole life. I mean, I can't just take that and go, race your head and here, let's put this new stuff in and you're going to do great. So it's kind of learning, and I'm not the best at it. I have some partners that are great. I think it's that human element of hiring the right people for the job. My job, and what I've learned over the years, is that my biggest job is putting people in the right spot to succeed. And we can go back to a lot of different business books and stuff, but really that's where I'm at now. And that's one of the biggest lessons to learn is, I had this discussion yesterday with one of my area managers. You know, I learned really fast when I opened a restaurant that I was good at, we'll say the back of the house. I was real good at washing dishes, real good at making pizza. I love doing all that stuff. Not good at running the till. Was not a till person. Didn't like taking people's money. That wasn't my thing. Didn't have the personality for it. So I ended up finding people that did. And in fact, you know, it's funny because we have these conversations all the time. And even this morning we were talking about some issues. And I said, you know, I would take back, we had a girl that worked for us that when you walked in, and she worked back when you were there, when you walked in, she'd say, hey, how you doing? And people would be like, do you know her? You know, no, I don't know her, you know. And she would connect so fast to that customer, but she was off on her tills every day. Well, she wasn't that concerned about the money. You know, she wasn't a nickel and dime, but I said I would take her back in a heartbeat and be $2 off, $3 off. You know, I don't think she was stealing. She just didn't add very well. But yet she connected with customers so well. It is worth that every day. And so finding people like that complement you in business is so important. And I have partners right now that do that. And they'll probably see this and they'll probably say, oh yeah, you know, you're brown nosing me or something. But I have partners right now that complement what I do really well. They like to do the things they do that I don't want to do, and the same. So that works well. So
you're still pretty involved in all your restaurants.
Well, I'm not as involved as I used to be. My job now is moved to really inspiring the employees we have. We do a road trip every year, and we try to go to every restaurant, and it's 2,000 miles of driving in just a couple days. You know,
Oh,
it's
wow.
ridiculous.
You hit them all at once.
Yeah, we try to, or we split it up over two different segments where we go for a few days, come back, go for a few days. And we go into each restaurant for a few hours, meet with the owners, the franchisees, and so forth. And it's difficult. You know, if we were in a big metro area, say a Phoenix, and we had 6 million people and we had 20 restaurants within a few hours, but I mean, we've got a 16-hour drive just to get to Mesa, you know, in Gilbert. So, and then we have stores in Boise and St. George, and you know, so it's difficult when you live way up here. My partners all live in Lehigh, which is more central for everything that we're doing. But we try to get into it, but really I'm to a point now where if I focused on doing just that, I wouldn't be able to get anything else done. It's kind of like I've moved out of the remodel phase where I used to do everything to just telling everyone else what needs to be done. It's a little strange. I'm used to not doing that. I'm more hands-on, but inspiring people and helping solve the problems that we have with our area managers and with our operations manager and our advertising and that's more of what I do now, more office work.
Do you plan to leave East Idaho and move down to Lehigh?
No, I mean I grew up in Delta, Utah, but no, we're staying in Rexburg. It's a great place to raise kids. We're not too far from being empty nesters, but maybe in the winter somewhere a little warmer.
Yeah, head down
which
to
everyone my age
St.
says,
George.
right? Yeah.
So let's talk about East Idaho. What is, you might not know this, but maybe give us an idea. What's the most popular pizza that people eat?
Well, there's the dessert, which is,
Dessert is off the charts.
well, the Oreo.
The Oreo one.
You know what's funny too
Yeah.
is when we made that pizza, I walked in one day and this kid, his name was Kyle Bunnell. He worked for us for a lot of years, great kid. He said, and he's really quiet, and he just says, "Hey Matt, I made this pizza, you ought to try it." And I'm not an Oreo fan. And I'm like, "Kyle, that looks absolutely, I'll just say, not something I would eat." You know, I'm like, that does not seem appealing at all. "No, it's really good, you know." I said, "Whatever." And they said, "Well, we want to put it on the buffet." You know, I said, "Fine."
Did you try
Put
it?
on. Yeah, I tried it, but no.
But you were just, nah.
No, it's not for me, and we can't keep those in stock. So that's definitely the number one. So thank you, Kyle Bunnell, for that Oreo, you know, frosting Oreo, more frosting, caramel, whatever.
It is really good.
Yeah, it goes well. You know, the buffalo wing is really good. I made that wing sauce years ago when I worked at my dad's restaurant. Came in one night, knew some different wing sauce recipes that I liked, but I liked a sweet one, and came up with that after 4 or 5 batches, and we do that buffalo wing pizza, and that one's very popular. And you know, the all meat, the hillbilly, and those are popular too. But you know what? You know, honestly, if you ask the guys making pizza, they'd say pepperoni.
Pepperoni.
I know, and you know what? I eat that most of the time when I go there.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
What
It's
about the
amazing.
Spud pizza? Is it, what is it called?
Spudalicious.
Spudalicious,
That
yeah.
took about 30 seconds to name that one. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that have one pretty good here?
You know what? It does go really well. And
Yeah.
it's funny when people come from out of town, you know, we're known for potatoes, of course. All my kids do the potato harvest and so forth. And so we were really excited to do that one. But it's really good, but it is different. I mean, you probably wouldn't order a whole one. That's the beauty of the buffet, right? Some of those pizzas, you wouldn't want a whole one, but you could order one. So the Spudalicious goes really well. You know, it's not as popular as some of the
It's
basics.
pepperoni.
But yeah, it's pepperoni.
So you don't have to get too specific here, but we hear a lot, at least we report a lot, that how hard it is to make money as a restaurant owner. Margins are thin. Everyone thinks it's a huge moneymaker. You waste a lot of food because no one buys it or orders it. I mean, I'm sure these are challenges that you've encountered, especially with the economy being up and down, up and down.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, restaurants, I've seen it both ways. I've worked for employers that, you know, that are smaller, you know, and they've done really well. And they've made plenty of money, and I mean, at least it appears so. Well, there's a couple thoughts there. The one is that you never know where you stand in a restaurant from one week to the next. And you see that with Chipotle. I mean, one bad problem and all of a sudden your customer base disappears. So, you can never pay your bills fast enough in a restaurant. We do not like owing anyone money because of that. So I've seen guys have restaurants and do really well, and all of a sudden they're driving big cars, fancy stuff and all that. And then they kind of lose interest, starts to dry up. And you can look really fast at a restaurant and see that the owner's lost interest. So that's the one side. And then I've seen other restaurants where they struggle and struggle and struggle all the time. But if you ask those guys, how's your inventory every week? How are you doing on all of your systems in your restaurant? Inventory, management, how's your labor numbers? Are you tracking all these things? Typically, they'd say, oh no, we don't need to do that. And how can you know where your problems are if you're not serious about tracking everything? So that's the biggest thing, is having your systems in place to do that, which we've developed over years.
And that leads into my next question as we're wrapping up. Your advice for small businesses, or for that teenage girl or boy that's like, I really want to own a donut shop or a cupcake shop. What would you tell them?
You know what? If you're planning on doing that, plan on working 16 hours a day. And I know that sounds, oh, he's just kidding around, but really that's what it comes down to. You have to be able to outwork everybody. There's no question there. So if you're going to go into the restaurant business, it might take, now I don't do that now. My kids would tell you that. But for a lot of years, it was 16 hours a day. Go home, sleep, get up, go back. And that's what it takes for any business to get it off the ground. If you're not working that many hours. My partner told me one time, he said, you work the first 8 to pay the bills, you work the second 8 to get ahead. And when you own your own business, that's how it is. So I think that's my biggest advice, is be prepared to put in 80 to 100 hours or so a week. That's what it takes.
What's next for you?
Well, that's a good question. We just opened a new concept called Red Rabbit Grill. Just my wife and I. It was a restaurant that my father owned that had been through a few different owners and stuff. And we really like that. It gives us an opportunity to do something different. But
down in Delta, Utah.
In Delta, Utah, yes. Very small town, great town.
Who's running it?
So actually, one of the guys that worked in this store. Okay. He worked here for 10 years, just before his school, high school, going to college, all that. So he's moved down there and runs it for us, does a great job. But, as a business owner, I don't have a company that I retire with. So building businesses is really important. I need to have that income going into later in life. So we look at acquiring assets where we can now, if we can do different businesses and stuff. And also looking at how I can help the different managers and area guys grow their own businesses and help them with stuff. So that's mostly what we're doing now. And remodels. We were just in here working, and we've got plenty of work in all of our stores to do, so those kind of things.
And hopefully new pizza flavors. Maybe the next Oreo pizza.
You say that, and it's really funny because we always have someone that says, oh, you should try this pizza and this pizza. And we're like, that would be great. So what would you like me to remove from the buffet? Oh, well, I don't know, So that's always the challenge there, is what are you going to get rid of, because there's only so much room.
Well, one thing I do like is when we come in, my wife prefers a gluten-free pizza or a special type of pizza. Generally, you will make it. Your people will make it and have it ready. So that is convenient.
We'll make you anything within reason, and put it out there. And that's the thing that we're trying to teach. And it's so difficult with a lot of these kids, is to tell them, go out and celebrate with the customers. Go do, take them a Cookie Monster if you feel like that's going to make their day and make it memorable. Those kind of things. That's what we're really trying to work on now. So.
Well, you've had a lot of success here. Glad you're still
Thanks.
Around and growing and booming. And
I know, it's amazing to see you.
It's good to be back here as well. Like I said, I met Matt when I bought that pizza and didn't have any money. And who would have thought I'd be interviewing you?
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here. We'll link to Pizza Pie Cafe here down below. You can go to their website, check out their buffet, and we thank you for watching. Have a good week.
East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.